Welcome to the Boardroom Sessions podcast. In these sessions, we meet the most amazing and interesting people. We learn about their passions, their business models, cool new technologies, and of course, their lessons on personal growth. I hope you enjoy. In this Boardroom Sessions podcast, we meet Dave Rhoads again for the 5th consecutive year. We go through 2024 goal planning. We're talking about the eulogy goal of coming up with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind, and how we come up with some of the concepts that we're going to change here for our lives. Identity, values. We talk about Dave's recent trip to Tony Robbins. We talk about lessons learned there. We most importantly dive into what we're going to do in what categories for the year, how we measure those goals, and without fail, we talk about systems and routines which are going to get us there. Hope you enjoy. Dave Rhoads, welcome back to the Boardroom Sessions podcast.
Mikey Miller, thanks for having me.
Dave, this is our 5th, I think. We did 20, 21, 22, 23. This will be 24, 2024 goal planning. So welcome back. We've done this as a tradition. You and I would be having this conversation if we weren't on podcast right now. We would be having this conversation man to man and asking each other, what are you working on for 2024? How are you going to get there? What are the systems and tools that you're going to use to do that? More importantly, you do a lot of learning and you do a lot of education. You just got back from Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny, right? You're in some accountability groups. You run with some mentor groups for work and for entrepreneurship and others. And so you're a source for me, and I'm hoping now for everyone who's listening to the podcast here of information and inspiration to go about doing this. So I appreciate your time and being on here.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored and I'm privileged to be on here. I love it. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mike. When you're talking though, I'm kind of amazed how you've kept this podcast going and that I love listening to it. And what's kind of your plans here going forward for 24? I don't want to flip the mic on Mike, but I'm curious, I think it's cool. It's everybody kind of talks about doing it, but you're one of those guys that actually do it. So good for you.
One of the things is the podcast itself is fun. I like it and enjoy it, and I get really good feedback from the folks that listen to it. So it's inspiring for me to continue to do it. It started as an idea based on the fact that I was a big fan of Tim Ferriss back in around 2017, 16. I started listening to a boatload of interviews, and I thought, hey, wait, I know some cool people that would say some cool things if I were to ask them some cool questions, right? And I ended up getting an idea about that. And what happens in my world is I put it out there and I say something like, I think I have an idea about running a podcast. And then guys like you and others will say, why don't you? Like, why don't you? And so the answer typically is, why don't I? And so what does it take? This podcast was one. You and I were having a run one time, and you said, how are you doing on that podcast?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't know, man. I'm getting kind of hung up on some of the details around editing and RSS feed and all these things I found out on how to run a podcast on YouTube. And it looked like a laundry list of things. And you giggled at me and said, outsource, use some tools. You pointed me to Fiverr. And you said, you have the hardest thing already done. And that is you have the ability to make the interview and run an interview. And 2, you have people that you can interview, right? So with that, everything else seemed really small and simple.
Right.
And I just needed to go tackle it.
Yeah.
So this is thanks for the prod. But it's essentially an action item thing for me, right? It was something I said I wanted to do. I took the leap of faith and did it. And the stuff that held me back was the simplest things, the logo, the mechanics of it. Those were really simple to figure out.
Just all these things that there's really, really fantastic people in the world that love to do it. And all these little things were holding you back from doing it, thinking you needed to be the guy to do it.
Yeah. And so the goal you asked, what do I want to do with the podcast in 2024 is I want to run it every month.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get to a monthly cadence. I've been close to a monthly cadence, but not religious about it, and I want to do that. The reason being is I have no shortage of people to interview, and so there's a lot of stories to get told out there. This is super fun and inspirational to others, and I get really good feedback. People send notes, on LinkedIn or on text. You and I got a really good note from our friend Mark the other day that was nice to hear. We didn't even point him there. He ended up finding the podcast and listened to it and loved it. And so
That was great.
it was great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where we're at for that. So, well, cool. Let's talk a little bit about what we would do very first, right off the bat. If you're looking at the new year and things that you want to accomplish, I think before you get there, you and I are both in agreement that a retrospection look at last year, what worked well, what didn't work well, is first order business, right?
Yeah, especially the what worked well, because we're really fantastic about pointing out what we're really bad at and what we kind of blew up or what we screwed up or whatever. But it's fact of the matter is, I always find when you take inventory, probably about 98 or 99% of the year went amazing. It's just we're not good at pointing that out. So I think it's asking some core questions around what were the top 10 things that were really awesome last year? What are the top 3 things I'm grateful for in my work? What are the top 3 things I'm grateful for in my family? I think kind of really getting those positive emotions flowing helps with the creativity as you set out for what you're going to accomplish in 24.
You also mentioned in my conversations around a Ben Franklin list of positives and negatives, right? Things that you enjoyed doing, things that worked well for you this last year and or ever, and then things that you find energy wasters or energy suckers or things you don't enjoy doing in your year, and identifying those things, and then using that as kind of a framework for helping you come up with the goals that you want to accomplish in the new year, i.e. asking yourself the question, how do I do more of what I love? And how do I do less of those things that take energy or I don't enjoy doing?
As a starter, yeah, I think that's one of my favorite questions is piece of paper on one side. What do I love to do? How do I do more of that? And then what do I not like to do, or what do I not want to do, and how do I do less of that? And that could be eating wise, it could be working out wise, it could be people wise, on the positive and the negative. And yeah, it's just to me, it's all about the quality of the questions that you ask. And if you Google, I know you mentioned Tim Ferriss at the beginning of the interview. I think he has this one really famous blog called the 17 most powerful questions you can ask yourself. And I kind of have been collecting questions that I've been able to ask myself over the last couple of years that I keep on Apple Notes. And anytime I'm kind of stuck on something or want to journal on something, there's just just good open-ended questions to ask yourself.
Most people don't, I think, ask themselves, what kind of questions did you ask yourself? And what were some of the answers you found?
Yeah, I mean, so I know you mentioned I went to this Tony Robbins seminar, right? Which is Tony Robbins. Woo-hoo.
Date with Destiny, right? Isn't that isn't that what they did on I'm Not Your Guru?
I'm Not Your Guru, yeah. But he talks about, he walks through this big exercise of kind of creating what he calls a new question for ourselves. So generally we kind of cruise around day to day and we kind of ask ourselves the same question over and over again, right? So as an example, somebody might say, how do I get people to like me? Or why am I so scared of this? And this question runs in the back of your head all day long. And we're really not aware of it oftentimes unless you've been through some kind of work like this. But what he teaches you is to come up with a better question, so instead of saying, hey, I wonder if I'm going to succeed in this, or I wonder if I'm going to fail in this, you would flip the question. The question you would ask yourself is, how can I see more of all the amazingness in this endeavor I'm about to take on? Or how do I see more love? Or how do I see more beauty? Or how do I see more of, so it kind of takes you from this scarcity mindset to this abundance mindset. So, something as simple as that could be a big, big game changer for your life.
Yeah. Seeing the what could be, seeing the positive, seeing the opportunity in it. right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and Tony says it all the time. What's wrong is always available, and so is what's right.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, and turn on the news any day of the week, people like to see what's wrong. That's just what we gravitate as towards human beings. But the fact of the matter is, it's like 99.9% of things that are going on in the world are absolutely beautiful. I'll sit there and sometimes news will get stuck in my house. I try not to allow it, and I'll watch it, and I'll get, I can feel my heartbeat, and I'll shut it off. I'll walk outside, and the birds are chirping. I go down to the beach and I'm looking at the ocean. It's like everything's actually pretty good. It's crazy.
So I work daily to have that mindset. I mean, I have we'll talk about it more, but I practice a morning routine that helps me get grateful, right? It helps me get to that place of not fear, fret, or worry, which sometimes can be a default thought process for me, right?
We're humans. That is a default problem. We wouldn't have evolved for a couple 100,000 years if that wasn't our default.
But it takes work, and I've balanced it now. I've found a routine that works for me of writing a gratitude list every single morning without fail. It is my routine. And after I write these things and counter my thought process, I find life is actually pretty damn bitchin'.
What do you do if that gratitude list gets stale?
That's a great question, and it often does get stale.
It does?
Well, yeah, some certain words that I'll write, I'll write them.
Like, how do you make it not a grind and something that kind of stays fresh?
I mixing it up.
Yeah.
I mix it up. Sometimes I write it. Sometimes I chant it when I'm out running or paddling. Other times I work it into a prayer format, right?
Yeah.
And for the record, I'm not a religious guy, but I do believe in something, and I don't know what it is, and I haven't coined it. I don't care to put a picture on it or a visual on it because it just doesn't matter. I just say up to whatever that thing is, I'm grateful and I'm happy and thank you. And the words I say all the time are thank you for today. Thank you for another spin on the planet. Thank you for the things in my life. Thank you for my dog Pepper, wagging her tail and licking my face every single time I come into a room. So things like that I'm grateful for, the little things, and I mix it up, and I consistently am looking. The other thing, Dave, that I do is I have a bunch of buddies that send me their gratitude lists daily.
Yeah.
And although it's annoying when I'm getting the ding ding on my text, I get to read their gratitude list, and I get inspired by what's going on in their life and what they're grateful for, and it inspires me to write new things and be grateful for new things.
Yeah. One of the concepts that kind of hit me between the eyes the last couple of years is how important it is to do that and double down on it when you least feel like doing it. And how important that is, and how important that is to your overall well-being, to really just when you don't want to put in the reps on that. And it is putting in reps. And frankly, I know it sounds extensive, but it's like maybe 5 minutes a morning, 10 minutes. It depends. You can shorten it up or make it as long as you want, but really how important it is to just 10x down on it when you don't want to do it, and what that does to your energy levels.
I call those systems, routines, if you will. This is right out of James Clear book of Atomic Habits, of the 1% incremental growth, right? I have to do something on a regular basis in order to have a baseline.
Yeah.
To be able to then get better at doing that. So if my goal is to be happy, joyous, and free, right? I need to be grateful. And to get grateful requires me to write a list in the morning. I'm down. I'm down for the cause. It was shown to me. It was foreign to me. It was not something that I've never journaled. I've never written anything that I didn't need to write. And so to do this for me was unique and different, but it's been almost a decade now.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell the listeners or anybody else that knows me, I think I'm infinitely happier now than I was a decade ago. Not that I was unhappy. I'm viscerally happy.
Yeah.
And I think it's largely due to the systems that we've developed, like gratitude.
It's very hard to have fear and be grateful at the same time.
Yes, for sure. I also do it at night. I get grateful at night and review the day that I had before. And get grateful for the good things that happened, right? I also take note of things that could have been better and work to make sure that I'm working on being better
Yeah.
in that thing or that area.
Cal Newport in his book Deep Work, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it before, but we kind of have our AM routine, but what's as important to him is the PM routine, right? Because in a 24-hour period, you're checking in with yourself actually 3 times. So you're doing the AM routine in the morning, then the PM routine, right? Whatever that looks like. I always encourage people, make it so easy you can't miss it. And then the AM, so in that 24-hour period, you're really gaining some good traction that way.
So
and frankly, a great AM is largely based on what you did last night. So if you have a cool PM shutdown or PM routine or whatever you want to call it, PM bookend, that's going to drive your next day. That to me, it's like you're having a great day today based on what you did yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. And we jumped right in. No, no surprise here for the listeners, but we jumped right into routines and systems that we use to help ourselves, right, on the daily, because it's worked for us. And so if I'm retrospective looking at 2023 and the top 10 good things that happened in my life, the top 10 things I would look for improvement in life, if you will, the things I enjoyed doing in 2023, the things I want to do more of, those kinds of things. If I looked at that in the year, it's a good place to start, right? So from there, then what? We're talking about building our goals and for 2024 and how we want to go about achieving the best year ever.
I always follow. I'm such a huge Stephen Covey fan. I feel like the longer he's not here, the more material his work becomes, and he always encourages everybody. And it's habit number 2: begin with the end in mind, right? But his end in mind was the real end, right? Where you walk into your own funeral and your best friend, your coworker, and your wife are up there about to say something about you. And really imagining and putting yourself in that, well, I guess it wouldn't be that seat. Who knows where we are at that point? But really, like, all right, what did these most important people in my life say about me? And really kind of journal on that and think about that. And I think if you start with the end in mind, your goal setting for this year becomes very, very clear on what you should focus on. And usually, what I find, it's not the 6-pack selfie, I'm famous, me, this, I have made billions of dollars, whatever. It's more like I was a loving dad. I was a good coworker. I cared about people. I, gave big hugs, whatever that is. It's like all these things come up that are really, really meaningful stuff that I think helps set some really cool goals for the year.
And if you guys want to look it up, there's a way to do it. It's out there on the internet on the eulogy exercise by Stephen Covey. But he has you literally walk through your own funeral, and you're walking through your funeral, and your kids are saying things about you and family. Your friends are up there saying things about you and speeches. People that you work with or people in your profession talk about you and how you showed up in that role in your life. Then, of course, there were people that you helped, the people that were you in your service work, whatever that is, whatever your contribution in life was. They're talking about you and what you did there.
And it wasn't new. I mean, Stephen Covey's been around a long time, but this ancient Stoic wisdom, right? The phrase that a lot of people have probably heard, memento mori, right? Remember death. And if you remember death, and they meant not someday, today, right? If you could go tomorrow or you could go 5 minutes from now, what would you say? What would you do? How you would act is way, way different than, just kind of going through the motions.
And I don't know what Native American tribe it was, but there was one in particular that I heard. The Romans, the Stoics, right, had the same thing. The Spartans had the same thing. They wanted to be current, valid with themselves, valid with the ideals that they had set forth in their society, and things, so that they knew at any given moment, if I die, I'm good.
Really?
I've been given it my everything.
That's
right?
Cool.
Like today is a good day to die.
Yeah.
Was what the
really?
Native American tribe would say. That was their battle cry. Like today would be a great day to die because I've done what I needed to do.
Crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's.
Yeah. And ask yourself,
cool.
Am I doing that in my life? Or am I punting it down the road?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Or am I making an excuse of why I can't?
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
those are hard
I love
questions to
that.
ask,
Yeah.
but those are things we need to start with in order to build the proper goal system,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Okay. So begin with the end in mind, the eulogy exercise. Where do I want to be? And what do I want people to say about me? And what would I like my life to look like if I could have the ideal life that I
That's
wanted?
right.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And so then we're back ending that. Now you start with the mechanism of, there's jumbo, there's 10-year, there's 5-year goals people do, right? But we're talking about 1 year. 1 year from now, what could be a fantastic, unbelievable, blowout, best year ever? What could be? What could that be? How do you get there? You've decided now, who's this person I want to be at the end of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that end of life could be now, what would that look like? Where could I go to get there? So now we're taking a 12-month view, one spin around the sun.
Well, I think the eulogy goes get you focused on what your core values and what your virtues are, right? And so when I talk in terms of kind of virtues and values and really taking the time to figure out what those are, because I feel like those are a great filter for whatever goals you set. You want to make sure those line up with your virtues and values, but in order to make sure they line up, you got to spend the time to do that. There's a cool site called viacharacter.org. I think Martin Seligman, the original founder of positive psychology, may have started it. And it's just a really good tool to kind of figure out what your core virtues are. So, because to me, it's like if you spend time working on that, then and combo that with a eulogy, you'll come up with some really good info about yourself. And then I think from there, kind of, I call them the jumbo goals. This is, I'm a big fan of the heroic training platform. I think they're calling it a heroic social training platform now, but this guy, Brian Johnson, founded this company a number of years ago. It used to be called Optimize. It's now called Heroic. But this guy gives such a great distillation of wisdom specific to topics like this that kind of help you, mull through all the craziness that's associated with it. So a lot of the key ideas I'm coming up with here, I got them straight from that Heroic training platform. But one of the concepts he teaches is jumbo goals, right? So I always talk about the jumbo goal that I have, and I think you have it now too, or vice versa. I don't know who had it first, but I want to surf with my great grandkids.
Yes.
Right. Not my great kids, great grandkids. And I know the odds of that, I gotta hit the genetic gene pool lottery. I gotta not, as I said today, I gotta not get hit by a truck.
But there are
knock
many
on
things
wood.
in your control that you can
So many.
control that you can put you there. And so if you
Yes.
have that goal out there of doing those things, you have to eat right because you need to stay healthy to live that long, right? The longest possible.
Yeah.
You have to train, right? You have to stay fit. You have to be financially secure enough to be in a position where you're able to be up and out.
You got to be a pretty good dad and a pretty good husband to make sure your family actually wants to still hang out with you. Then
Exactly.
It encompasses everything. So I'm a big fan of what I don't know if that's the right term, but vertical integration of goals or goal setting to the now, but beginning with the end in mind. So if that's my North Star is what I call it. It's not, it's maybe not, it's less of a destination and more of a guiding star. And so when I'm thinking about my goals, whether it's for today or this week, I'm going from the top, I'm starting there, and then I boil it all the way down to, okay, what needs to happen this year in order for me to have a shot at that? And you're right, it stratifies into energy, it stratifies into work goals, it stratifies into, relationship, love goals.
Yep. So the eulogy exercise helped me come up with a lot of the values, right, that I want to have in my life, right? That I want to be, that my identity is wrapped around the set of values that I want, right? And in order to have those sets of you do the exercise, you find out the things that you want more of, the virtues you want to live by, the things you want to be known for, right? So let's say we have a list of these things. Like some of them would be love, integrity,
so
unconditional love. I wrote these things down when I did my.
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time here. So you kind of have your universal virtues or your universal values, and this is positive psychology combined with ancient philosophy to all the major religions. They all kind of cover love, hope, courage, wisdom, curiosity. zest is a term that heroic uses. I call it energy, zest or energy.
Gratitude.
Gratitude is a big one. So you kind of have these universal ones, and then you have your unique ones. And I think, you got to kind of put in the work to do that. That VIA character allows you to kind of figure that out pretty quick. And then you're going to have some combo of the two. And then out of that, and this is kind of one of these things, like it's like meditation or mindfulness. There's about 70 different ways to slice it. You just got to figure out what works for you. But this is kind of what's been helpful for me. So, and just having those as your core set. So when you're setting goals, you're thinking about today, you're thinking about what do I want to accomplish, you're living with virtue first, right? And if we really want to be happy and we really want to flourish, science says be practicing your virtues, not someday, but all day, every day.
Right.
And it's really easy to do it. It sounds like a lot, but it's not that hard.
Yeah. And so I take this to my vision board, right? And I actually put my values, my identity into words, and I put those words in a fun format or a quote on the vision board.
Yeah.
Right. That's one way of doing it. For example, consistency. Right. Consistency is a virtue that I want to be. Right. I want to have, to name a few, but that's one. And when you talk about the personal ones outside of the other ones, one of those for me is I am a connector, right? And so I identify, I own that identity, I become that connector, right? And I know that in all facets of my life.
But you say super connector, right?
I super connector.
Yeah,
yes.
I think it's important to add those exclamation points in front of it so you can really drive it home, because a connector is going to really set different goals than a super connector.
Right.
So I think that's important to point that out.
I get chills when I hear superconductor spoken, and I get chills when I speak the word superconductor.
Yeah.
And so that's an energetic thing for me that gives me, it gets me excited.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the things that I want to live by in my life. And so I identify those. We go through this exercise of finding out some of these virtues we want at our eulogy exercise. We go to viacharacter.org and learn some more about what our drivers are and what some of our virtues and characters that we want to be. We set those down. Then what?
Oh, geez, I lost track here. So identity. We kind of touched on a little bit with super connector first, right? Identity is the hallmark of change, or identity. We're always going to drift back to whatever our identity is, or hopefully be pulled towards our identity. So it's really important to spend some time of what is my Todd Herman wrote a book called Alter Ego. So what is my alter ego? Not in a way like I'm going to show up as some random person or I'm going to be a different person, but what is my version of Clark Kent versus Superman, right? What is I always say, Kobe Bryant, when he was on fire, he was called the Black Mamba, right? So what's my version of that?
He had a Mamba mentality.
Yes.
That he would even say.
Yep.
He would say, the Mamba mentality is.
Yeah. And it's a thing. I read it. It was a study done by, I don't know, some university, but they tracked, they put a bunch of kids in a room, grade school kids, like first graders, for example, and they gave them a bunch of keys to unlock a box, and the keys wouldn't unlock the box at all. So one group of kids, they just gave them the keys and they said, go unlock the box, and the kids would kind of do it, and they'd try one or two or three keys and they'd give up real quickly. And then the other group of kids, they gave them the same keys, didn't unlock the box, but they told one kid, you're going to be Dora the Explorer. They told one kid, you're going to be Batman. They told another kid, you're going to be whatever superhero. And those kids did not let up. Even to the point where one kid said, Dora the Explorer never gives up. So it's like we all have these superpowers built in us from the time that we're little kids. And it's important for us to kind of spend some time there and figure out what that is. So when we're setting goals and we're setting, the best version of us, it's coming from the best version of us.
Right. I want to put a plug in here for an opportunity that's worked for me as well to fine tune this. Okay. So not only if I'm fairly clear with the virtues and identity I want to own and have, from exercises like this and from life and from polling other people. But I also have heroes in my life
Yeah.
that I know, some I don't know, some I've had an opportunity to meet, right, on a vision board, which is something for another conversation. But these are folks that I look up to for various different reasons. I've heard them on podcasts. They emulate something in their life that they're doing. I listen to lots of their books and things that they do, and I want to emulate a certain characteristics that they have, certain identity traits that they have, right? And so you can find them there. You mentioned Dora the Explorer never gives up, right? So when people identify with that, you can have a Dora the Explorer kind of thought process if that works for you. Because if you attach to she wouldn't give up, I'm like her, I'm not going to ever give up, you're getting there. You're getting to the same place.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know that there are certain people that I emulate toward, that I look for these things. And I actually call them my dream team. And I have them, I take pictures of them and I put them on my vision board, and people are like, why do you have a picture of that dude? Don't you know he's a D-bag or whatever? And I'm like, well, he might be. I've never met the dude, but when I look at him, I think of him for the following.
Right. Yeah. That, I love that hero concept. That's something that Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich is really kind of have your board, your whether it's a real board or an imaginary board. And I think his was imaginary.
Board of directors, right? People that you look to. And so I have an opportunity to teach a class, and I ask a lot of folks about virtues and people that they look up to in their life. And it almost always comes back to a family member, a mother, a father, a grandparent, somebody that they emulate. And then when I ask, or that they admire, and I ask them, what is it that you admire about that person and you look to? They come right back to these same core values.
Yeah.
They were a really hard worker no matter what. They never gave in. They always persevered, right? They had a positive attitude even when it was raining outside. They always saw the upside rather than the downside. Something of those nature is what I hear. So wherever you go to find that, if it looks like an individual and that works for you, that's fine too, right? I'm just saying there's more than one way to figure out where your virtues are.
Yeah. I remember when we were setting the values for our company long ago, we did that as an exercise where we asked everybody in the room to think about a hero and write the top 5 things that you admire in that person. And then, you put all the stickies up, and then so you start seeing all these core values coming out from everybody. And it was all based on somebody that they had admired, whether it was a grandparent or, Coach John Wooden or whatever. But it was pretty amazing how quickly you figure out what the core values are of the company when we did that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I totally forgot we did that. That was a long time ago.
So there's a lot of ways to come up with this, but you're coming to a place where you're getting to your values and your identity, right? So what's the difference between a value and an identity?
Well, to me, identity is who are you at your best? What's your identity at your best? So at my best, whatever, I'm Superman, right? Or I am world-class Superman. I'm a world-class athlete. I am the most fantastic mother ever. Whatever that is, that's your identity. And to me, the virtues are what that person does on a regular basis. They're loving, they're caring, they have courage, so to me, it's identity, virtues, and values. I know I should really kind of figure out the difference between the two, but to me, virtue seems to be a stronger connotation. And then from there, all right, let's set some big goals for the year. Let's break it down. I always like using what I call the big 3: energy, work, love. Stephen Covey had roles and goals, which gets long, right? Because you have a lot of different roles. Tony Robbins had his was categories of improvement. But the heroic platform and what I learned from then, what's been really helpful for me, is kind of the big 3: energy, work, love. And then I added a +1: spirit.
Right. And we're almost identical here. I have body, mind, spirit, and relationships. And those are the categories in which I set goals.
That's right.
Those are the categories in which I put on a vision board and on my vision.
Yeah. And then the energy, work, love, just real simply, if I was to say, hey, just do this is set 1 in each for the year. Go, what's the one thing that's going to be the most important thing for me to do energy wise, work wise, and then relationship love wise, and then spirit wise. And then what am I not going to do in each? So you end up walking out of there with 6 to 8 total things, but it's not the stop is, to me, way, way more important than what I'm going to start, because the stop ideally just frees up space immediately. The start, you got to go out and do something, right? Which is great. But remember, the stop, I think a lot of people, they get these laundry lists, and it's like a lot of times I'll build a list of like, all right, what am I not going to do? What am I going to stop doing?
And some of those stop doing are more powerful than anything else, right? Like one of the things you always tell me is +1, -1, right?
Yeah.
Like what am I going to do more of and what am I going to do less of?
That's right. Yeah.
And so those less of could be toxic things in your life, and taking that away could relieve so much more opportunity for growth for you.
Yeah, a big stop for me is always the phone, right? It takes up a lot of time, and if you start tracking your time on it and say, I'm going to reduce whatever my time is per day by half, that creates a lot of space.
Sure. For me, it's fear. Honestly, there's a emotional state that I can feel sometimes. It's a lot less, in my life today, but it's still there. And if I were to take that away on the daily and not operate there, or at least recognize when I'm in it and have a counter to it, that will create so much more opportunity for me to do other things, right? And so I have to have tools and systems in place, like a morning routine and gratitude and affirmation statements, to remind me what really is and not what catastrophic events are playing up in my head.
It's fun. It's funny, the cool things that we come up with in order because we had to. Because if fear, and you know why you come from that place of fear, right?
No.
Because you're fucking human, right? It's such a human thing to do, but it's interesting what we've built out of things that we were like, all right, I got to build some structures around something that is hard for me, and really achieve some great things as a result.
And I can recognize it right away because it's counterintuitive to my identity. My identity is that I'm a fearless, courageous, hard-charging individual, right? And so when I feel it, it's very palpable to me, even at a micro level, and I don't want it. So it doesn't serve me well. So it's always on my negative minus. Take one away.
Yeah,
right?
It's very difficult to have fear and be grateful at the same time, and you've figured that out at a very. I mean, you don't think about doing a gratitude list every day. It's like it's a habit. It's ingrained.
It's a routine, or better said to me regarding a gratitude list, it's a ritual.
Yeah,
ritual is even further than a routine. Okay, so we've gone through and looked at the +1s, the -1s, the big one in each category, and I would say simplify here. If I've made any mistakes personally on goal setting, it's been too many goals, too much going down. I have a coach. She challenged me this year to focus. Right, focus. That I've got too many things. I named a bunch of things when I was going through this exercise, and I had about 15 things. And that's way too much.
And how did you end up focusing? What did you use?
One in each category.
And so
one big one above all others.
How'd you get it down to that one?
Inspection of what one thing would empower everything else to fall into line.
What was my outcome? What's my outcome?
The outcome for me was a financial security, right?
Yeah.
Financial freedom.
So that was that question you used, what the outcome, and that's what you
right.
came. Yeah.
And I got a number, 24-month goal, right? Or excuse me, 12-month goal on what for 24. I got that goal in my head of what that would look like. I put it on a piece of paper and say, if I were to achieve this year, then I would feel free enough to have a lot more energy to do other things.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where the area of focus is right now for me. On 2024, there's that number, and then I will go through a laundry list of exercises, and we'll back end it here into, quarterly, monthly, weekly goals to try and get towards that goal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things I want to share that I thought has been really important for me is kind of and it might fall under the one thing goal, but the meta goals, right? And so Tim Ferriss talks about this a lot. Is what is it, or called a meta habit, or whatever? What is it that I can do that would improve every aspect of my life, right? So 3 years ago, I started doing TM, or transcendental meditation, right? It's 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. I hit the nighttime about 50% of the time, but I'll tell you what, man, there has been very few things that have fundamentally changed my life more than having that peace and quiet for that period of time. So so that as an example, what would be something meta in your life that would just make everything else easier or non-existent, and playing with that question a little bit and always kind of looking for what's that next thing that's going to help me with everything,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that in relationships, work, working out, whatever it is.
Yeah. For me, that's hot yoga, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You described meditation, what meditation has done for you. That is one element of what I get in a hot yoga session. It's been the biggest uptick I've had in my life in the last several years, bar none. It creates a state for me. It creates a opportunity for me to reflect. It creates an opportunity for me to connect with source. It creates an opportunity for me to get very quiet and purposeful about something. It gives me an opportunity to face a challenge. Yes, hot yoga is a challenge for anyone listening who hasn't done it before. Then you're talking to an athlete. It is one of the hardest things I do in my day, is to complete through that process of not laying down and giving up, right? It's a personal struggle. And some days I choose not to struggle. I choose to succumb to whatever is, right? And be there. But reality is I learn lots of lessons in that. And so that's a one big thing for me. That's a non-negotiable,
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think medical, I was thinking about sleep, right? If the fastest way, and Brian Johnson at Heroic always says, he's like, the fastest way to fundamentally change your life is get an extra hour of sleep per night. Right. Good, good. I have that. That's a very big challenge for me. But if you're getting 6.5 hours sleep, it's add an hour in there, your life will change literally overnight.
So
It's
find out
crazy.
what that
So
meta
what
goal
the
is
meta
in your
is, yeah.
life. It could be something that you already have. It could be something that you're exploring to find. For some people it's eating better. Some people it's eating differently. For some people it's working out that haven't worked out. It could be lots of different things, but there's a meta there that's going to to your point,
Change everything.
change
Yeah.
everything. The One Big Thing is a book that we both read, right? The
Mm-hmm.
One Big Thing has a similar concept here. What one big thing could I be doing that would change
Yeah,
everything?
Gary Kelleher's One Thing book. But on that meta goal though too is James Clear talked about this too, is make it self concordant, meaning make it your habit, make it your goal, make it something that you're super excited about, and also what's the thing that's going to be the easiest to attain, and really kind of throwing it through that filter. What can I do that's really easy, and what can I do that I'm really going to love to do, and I want to establish that. And if you kind of look at it from that perspective, you're more inclined to knock it out of the park on it.
Yeah, awesome. So have that one big thing and focus in each one of these categories, right? So in your world, it's a goal for energy, it's a goal for work, it's a goal for love, and it's a goal for the plus one spirit, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. And so you put these things down on paper, you write yourself a note. What do? You pick a number, if it's a financial goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have it on a, a shared, I have it on a spreadsheet. Right. And so on my spreadsheet, I have year over year, I've done it for the last, whatever, few years. And I have, on spreadsheet one is kind of my jumbo goals. It's my virtues. It's all the things I want to remind myself on a consistent basis. So, when I'm doing my planning, I'll look at on a weekly basis. I sit down for whatever, half hour a week, and I look at, all right, what are my jumbo goals? What are my virtues? What identity do I want to embody? All right, what are my annual goals? And then that boils down to, okay, what do I need to do this week? If it's a monthly review, it's what do I need to do this month? And then, that's the goal setting to now, or kind of that what we talked about, that vertical integration of goals. So I'm going jumbo goals all the way down to, okay, what do I need to do today? What do I need? What's important now? What do I need to do right now? And I'm not making it up every time. I've put in the hard work to figure out what those end goals are.
Yeah.
So to me, it's on a spreadsheet, and it works. It works good. And I'm telling you, it sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's really, once you dial it in, it's not a lot of work.
You have a lot of systems that you utilize, and they're very productive for you. For me, it's a lot more basic. I write body, mind, spirit, relationships, and for the year, and I pick a big thing that I want to accomplish in each one of those. A big
Mm-hmm.
state would be the outcome. Like, what would the outcome look like, feel like, and be? I use SMART, if you will, for goals. It's got to be measurable, attainable, things that SMART's an acronym. I forget what it stands for completely. It's
Specific, measurable,
specific, measurable,
attainable, realistic,
attainable. Yeah. And then
timely.
timely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I use that as how I want to have the end state be, right? So I have a work goal as a number, right? It's a financial number. What do I see that look like, right? For my body category, I pick an event every year. Everybody's heard this before and knows. I pick an event toward the end of the year. I pick something big and spooky that's going to keep me training all year long, easy to back end into. I've got a workout plan that I need to go to. I got an eating plan I need to go to. I have a time management plan of being able to do things to go to put me in category or in contention to do that goal, right?
Your
Masogi, right? Was something that has a 50-50 chance of not surviving.
Did you get one for 24 yet?
Well, I'm kind of cheated now that we're a part of Open Water, and I have a channel crossing on Veterans Day in November.
I think if it was the first time you did it, it's a Masogi, but
not to be repeated every year. No. So I have to figure out a Masogi for the year.
Yeah.
I haven't had one yet, but I'll get one on the calendar. That's going to be one of the goals here. So I put those things down. I do them in two formats. One, I write a vision for my life, right? That's more of a long-term. It's not a 24-month goal scenario or a 12-month goal scenario. But I have a overarching vision of what I want. And I paint a picture, very specific, detailed picture of a place in my life that is ideal. Right. And I can paint the picture of the living environment, who I'm living with, who I'm hanging with, what I'm doing there, what I'm doing for activities, right? What I'm not doing, what I'm not worrying about. Those kinds of things are all put down there. I put that vision down. I get very clear on that. I also put a vision board down, which is each year I do at the beginning of the year. I will do it this weekend. I'll build a vision board where I actually put fun pictures that represent these areas of focus: body, mind, spirit, and relationships, for a 12-month period of what I would see as success there. There'll be a financial number in the middle, and there'll be pictures that represent body in motion, right? What I want to be doing. There'll be pictures representing the relationships in my life. And when I mean relationships, I mean relationships with people I work with, people that I associate with people my family. Each individual kid has a different, representation of what I want to accomplish there with them, et cetera. And so I get very specific about that, but I have fun with that in a vision board format. But more importantly, I think, and I'm going to just fast forward to where you and I always go, is the year goals are great, and I put them out there and I make them hairy, if you will, and a little bit scary. Like, ooh, I don't know if I can actually do that, or that feels like it's a really big number.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be that for me.
Yeah.
I have to have it out there. But when I do that, I don't concern myself with what's going to happen in the next 12 months of how I'm going to get there. I go right to the 30-day plan and the 1-week plan, right? What can I do in the next 30 days? What can I do in this very next week that are going to put me in motion toward that goal, that are going to get me on the right course? And that's what I focus on. I focus on the day, the week, the month sometimes. I can focus on that as well, on certain areas. That's where I spend my time and my focus. I worry about getting 1% better every day, every week, of how I'm going to get toward that goal. And I fall in love with what James Clear would call the trajectory, right? So draw a trajectory where I'm at right now, little dot, and then a line up to that goal. And it's a ... where I'm going and where I'm growing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to focus on.
Put your self-esteem into the process, not the result.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fall in love with the identity, right? So as James Clear would say, if I want to run a marathon, right? Most people would say that they put a marathon on the calendar. They pick a date, they back in the date with how many runs they're going to need to run at which days a week, et cetera, to run that marathon, right? They then say that they have to train for this marathon. James Clear would tell you the best way to do it would be to put the date on the calendar, set the goal, but fall in love with becoming a runner and become a runner, a marathoner. What would a marathoner do today would be the question you would ask yourself every day. Yeah. Not what do I have to do to run a marathon?
Which checks that. I mean, that's identity 101, right? It's like, I'm a marathoner.
I'm a marathoner now.
I'm a world-class marathoner.
And it makes decisions for you. Yep. So you're at the buffet. What are you going to eat at the buffet? I don't know. What would a marathoner eat? Right.
Yeah.
And that makes that decision for you right there. I go to my dream team. I go, what would Laird Hamilton eat? Right. Mm-hmm. And he eats plants and animals. And he says he doesn't eat anything out of a box or a bag.
Yeah.
Right. It's got to be real food.
Yep.
That's his thing.
Yep.
Right. I love that. And so is that always available? No, but I can make decisions that put me in line with that more often because I am that, right? I am that athlete. Hopefully that makes sense. What are your thoughts on how once you put these big goals down? So you have a goal in energy, work, love, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And spirit. Those are your big ones, your guiding forces. What do you do with them?
Well, they go on the spreadsheet. I look at them all the time. I mean, at a very minimum, I look at them on a weekly basis. And when I'm firing, I'm looking at them on a daily basis. And I'm building systems, I'm building plans, I'm thinking about it. Gabrielle Oedigen gives this great tool. I can't remember the name of her book, called the Whoop tool. Have you heard of that before?
No.
It's WOOP, right? So if you've set a goal, she calls it the Whoop model. So the goal is a wish. The second O is outcome. What am I going to get because of this? What's going to happen because of this? And the third one is one that we all kind of ignore, or that people sometimes ignore, is what are the obstacles that I could encounter, right? And making sure we really focused on those obstacles in a sense of, there's going to be obstacles, right? And then, and her, the language, I can't remember the exact language she used. That obstacle is kind of what gives us traction on our goal. So wish, outcome, obstacle, and then plan. What's my plan, right? Which can address the obstacles. And then, as Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So have a plan A. And when plan A doesn't work, which it will, the moment you walk out the door, what's my B, what's my C, what's my D, all the way down to Z, and then back up, again, until you do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So
one of the mechanisms I have that works really well for me and a couple of my other friends that we talk with regularly, is a weekly plan, right? So on Sunday evenings, I write a list based on body, mind, spirit, and relationship. I put 3 things in each one of those categories that I am going to do this week. It's a number. I'm going to lift weights 3 days a week, right? I'm going to go to yoga 5 days a week, right? Or 5 days this week. Things like this, they're deliverables to myself. They're action items. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the difference between a New Year's resolution and an actual goal, right?
Goal of the plan.
Goal of the plan.
Yeah.
Without the plan, no plan.
So what do you do, like, you go on vacation or you get sick and you get knocked off, right? Which is that's life. Things happen. So what do you do to get back on?
Well, for one, the weekly plan that I have is based around whatever it is I'm doing that week, right? So if I am on vacation,
but do you sit around and kind of beat yourself up a little bit and kind of go, woe is me? Or?
No, I try not to, right? And so I don't say that I don't beat myself up, but I try not to. I try and continue to be as consistent as possible in doing the routines that work for me.
So what are some guideposts that you could put in play? Or I guess we can talk
accountability.
about
Accountability is a big one.
But so that's great, accountability. But what do you mean by that?
I mean, I surround myself with individuals that I share that group with.
Middle of August, it's you're 2 weeks into August, just got back from a big family vacation, ate too much, not ready to get back at it. How do you get back on it? Like so accountability, that's cool. I'm not a big fan of that word, but it's a very necessary word.
Yeah.
But so what does that mean to you?
It means that I check in with other individuals that are there to give me A, encouragement, B, a challenge, right? And C, know that it's not just me, that I've put it out there that I'm going to do these things and I'm going to look silly if I don't. That's all wrapped up in accountability for me, right?
Yeah.
So that keeps me on track. If I do fall off for a period of time, which happens, right, on certain things, I jump right back in. It's not, I don't let time go by. I won't let routines consistently
Right.
fall.
Yeah. Got it.
I just don't. I don't know if that's, I don't have the ultimate discipline, but I have curated discipline in my life. I've helped develop some of it around these things. But more importantly, the word I prefer to use is consistency.
So what about like, Mike Miller 15 years ago? What would you tell that guy if he got knocked off? I'm talking about you or me or whoever. It's because this isn't, we haven't been doing this our whole lives, right? Maybe pretty consistently here this last 10, 12 years, but 20 years ago, I wasn't doing this stuff. So I'm thinking in terms of, if somebody's kind of getting going in this process, right? Sometimes it's discouraging. I went through this process, didn't have a great year. I'm not going to bother doing it this year. What would you tell that person?
Don't give up. That this is not at all debatable whether this works or doesn't work. It works if you work it, right? You have to consistently keep after it.
I think it's kind of like, I guess paddle boarding in a way, right? It's when you're sitting in the middle of the Catalina Channel and you start getting all wobbly and everything, you don't look down, right? You look out, right? You have a vision. You can hopefully
we focus on the horizon.
Yeah. So I think, and that kind of comes with the eulogy and everything else. I'm just maybe thinking aloud to myself. It's like when all hell breaks loose, which it does, right? We're human beings. If all hell breaking loose, you're probably not human, or as they say, get down on your knees because you're probably going to die pretty soon if there isn't something going on. But, always zooming back out to that eulogy. What's my vision? What's my compelling future? And starting there and then kind of bringing it back to, okay, this is why I'm doing this stuff.
There's two questions that are very important to ask here when you're down, in my opinion. I ask myself these two questions. One is, what would be the cost if I continue to go down this path? What's this going to likely cost me, right? Every day of not working out costs me, but I don't identify it. If I don't call it out there and call it out what it is going to be to me, it just goes and becomes that thing. But if I think about it and I'm like, wait a second, I'm going to get soft. I'm going to be unhealthy. I'm going to lose energy. I'm going to have, I'm going to take a step back on everything I've been working for. I'm losing longevity probably, right? There's all of these things that I will cost. Most people don't look at that. That cost is a big thing. The other thing is, what would I do if I got off my ass and did what I said I was going to do today? I'm going to have more energy. I'm going to feel better about myself. I'm going to live longer. I'm going to be more attractive. I'm going to be these things, right? So I ask myself, what if I don't and what if I do? And I almost always, the what if I do wins.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
So those are some questions. I've heard it referred to as your desires and your disgusts, right? So what is it that I desire in my life? And what are the things I do not want in my life and I do not like, right?
Yeah.
And so pay attention to those and be part of those.
One of the things that Tony Robbins teaches that I love, and it's a good framework, is he calls it the 5 to thrive, right? So anytime you're feeling funny or you're feeling off, first, physiology drives psychology. What are you doing body-wise? Second is focus. What am I focused on? Third is language. What's my empowering language? I am courage. I am whatever that is. I am like, and then the other one is vision. What's my compelling future? 4. And then 5, his final one, and this plays into Atomic Habits. This plays into everybody. What's your identity? Because that you're always going to go back to that identity and owning that best version of you identity wise. Like I think about take a former college athlete, right? It's like, in my view, once an athlete, always an athlete. And sometimes, I was an athlete in college, and it's like, no, man, you're still an athlete. You're still a badass. Just because you're, not in college and you're not doing these, scoring 40 points a game in college, you're still an athlete, and your body kind of demands that and your life kind of demands that.
Sure.
So, identity wise, it's everything.
I picked on that one. I picked that one up a few years ago. If you guys are listening to the podcast at all, I am an athlete changes everything for me identity wise. It changes how I eat. It changes how I train. It changes how I sleep. It changes how I think. I don't think of myself as a guy who needs to go get a workout tomorrow. I think of myself as an athlete who works out and will work out tomorrow. And it just keeps me going that direction. And you can't debate with me whether I am an athlete or not, because it's my identity. It's not what you think of me. It's what I think of me.
Yeah, it goes back to the question, what do I want?
Right.
What do I want beyond pleasing, protecting, whatever it is? Like, what do I want? What's important to me?
So we gave you a lot of information here, folks. Start with the end in mind. Who do I want to be? What is it I want more of, less of in my life? The plus ones, the minus ones, right? Start there. Build a list of values, virtues, if you will, that you want to live by. That's based on the questions you've asked yourself about what was working, what's not working. Then with those, pick 3-4 categories in your life. I pick body, mind, spirit, relationships, right? Dave has energy, love, work, and spirit. Whatever those are for you, pick a few categories and pick a goal. Pick a big, scary goal for the end of the year. If it's body, focus on the end state. If you want to lift, if you want to make muscles in your body, for example, and you want to be jacked, if you're one of those folks, then I would suggest focusing on a weight goal, right? Like I want to lift a certain amount of weights by the end of the year, and get to a place that sounds like maybe I can't do that. A byproduct will be you're going to get jacked, right? You're going to get jacked. If you pick the number for financial goal, like, hey, this is the amount of money I want to generate this year. Okay. You're going to get into action, becoming a person who's making that goal, right? And you back end it. Once you have these goals set, you put them out there, whether you write them on a vision statement, whether you put them on a vision board, whether you just write them down as my goals for 2024 are blah, blah, and blah. It doesn't matter. Just put them down, declare them. I would also then say and suggest heavily, get a friend, an accountability partner, or a few friends and tell them what you're working on for the year, right? They will help hold you accountable so that they can ask you questions. It's happened in my life. Somebody came to me, mid-year, every year has asked me, how are you doing on that goal? Because I put it out there and it forces me to reevaluate.
One final thing I want to mention, because I'm a victim of this, is don't make it perfect. Go out and as far as the goal, just go out and screw it up. Go out and fuck it up. Just go do it. And have fun with it, and don't make it a thing. Just go. Even if it takes you 5 minutes, just go do it.
Yep, for sure. And alter if things change, of course, and you want more, which could happen. Get after it. Okay. But the most important thing I want to leave everybody with is the systems and the routines that make this happen. I personally believe the difference between a New Year's resolution, I declare that I'm going to lose weight this year, or I'm going to get fit this year, those don't work, because that's kind of a statement without an actual goal, without an actual end result pictured and put out there. If you do put that out there, that's the first step. The second and most important step here is to put an action plan together, and put the action plan together in a small, manageable increment. Like tomorrow, like this week, what am I going to do? And if you measure that and you look at that and you set that as a goal, it's an incredibly powerful way. And that way, Dave, back to your original statement of what happens if you fall off track. I'm only off track for a number of days, not a month, not a long time.
Yeah.
It's quick and dirty. I also am available if anybody wants to send me your weekly goals, right, that you have in those categories. I get a bunch of texts right now from folks. So I'll be your accountability buddy if you want. We have lots of folks that are willing to do that. And I'm sure there's people in your life that you can do that. But if you put it out there, what you're going to do on the weekly, you'd be surprised how big you're going to show up for yourself. Right?
Absolutely.
Good luck, everybody. Get after it. 2024, it's going to be a great year. Besides and despite anybody who says anything else about all these silly economy sucks, the political affairs are awful, there's impending doom and gloom on the horizon, there's always people going to say that. And you know what happens? There's people that succeed in that environment every time.
Every time.
I'm going to be one of the latter.
That's right.
All right. Get after it. Good luck. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike here. Hope you liked this boardroom session. Please check back to our future sessions as we're recording a new one every month. If you want to reach out, look for me on LinkedIn or send me a note at mike@sidepath.com. That's mike@sidepath.com.